So before we so before we start the webinar, let me take a moment to introduce you to Mental Health Amen Foundation. Established in 2022 by our visionary CEO, Ms. Amen Shehzadi, who is a clinical and counseling psychologist, the foundation is dedicated to providing high quality psychological intervention services and spreading mental health awareness to the wider public. Our foundation operates through four key departments. The first one is clinical psychology department, where we offer a range of therapeutic services free of cost. Second one is the education department, which focuses on mental health literacy and training programs. And the aim of this department is to raise awareness on different mental health issues as well as social issues prevalent in our society. Then we have the social media department, which is a platform to connect, educate, and engage the community with mental health resources. We also have a donations department, as we believe in accessible mental health care, offering free or pro bono services to those from disadvantaged backgrounds. Our donation efforts help extend mental health services to those in need, breaking barriers of affordability. So now I'll be giving a little overview on tonight's webinar. Ms. Mishkan will be talking about the Big Five personality traits based on the Big Five model. The session will be an interactive and engaging, and hopefully it will give us an insight into our own personality type. At the end of the session, we'll open the floor for a Q&A session. In the meantime, feel free to drop any questions you have in the comments section, and we'll address them towards the end. So without further ado, over to Ms. Mishkan.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Mishkan, and I'm today's speaker. I'm also part of the Mental Health with Amen Foundation, and I'm a clinical psychology internee here. So this is my first webinar, and today's topic is Big Five personality. So before delving into the topic, I'd like to clarify what we think personality is. And I think यहाँ पे सारे are going to be from a psychology background. So can anyone give me a definition of what they think personality is?
Can I be speaking?
Of course.
All right. According to me, personality consists of your traits, which defines how you think, what are your perspectives and your beliefs about the world around you, and what are your perceptions regarding it. That's how your thoughts work according to it.
Exactly. That's a really good definition. Thank you for volunteering. So personality, हर किसी की different होती है. It's unique. And it means your thoughts, your feelings, or anything, your behaviors, your characteristics, anything that makes you unique. Let me just 1 second share my screen. Okay, is my screen visible now?
Yes, it is, Ms. Mishkan. You can please proceed.
Okay, so we were talking about personality. So throughout history, scientists have given lots of theories about personality. So today's topic is Big Five personality. According to this, personality can be categorized into 5 different predominant traits that can be seen on a spectrum, on a continuum. For some people, they are on really dominant. For some people, they are on the lower dominant side. And these traits are considered to be stable and seen to be very common. So we have 5 traits. These include extroversion, openness, neuroticism, agreeableness, and conscientiousness. So let's start first with extroversion. I think extroversion का तो सबको idea होगा. We say कि I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert, I'm an ambivert. So what exactly does that mean? Extroversion is how much interacting with other people brings you happiness or stimulation, or how much are you a people's person. And high extroversion can be characterized by when you are very outgoing? Do you like making conversation, meeting new people? And it doesn't drain you, rather it does the opposite. It brings you a lot of energy and excitement. And do we have any introverts here or extroverts?
I'm an ambivert. I fall in the middle, exact middle.
Exactly. So the thing that I mentioned before, कि all of these traits exist on a spectrum. इसमें you will see कि कहीं पे you fall extroversion में आप ज्यादा हो, कहीं पे आप introversion में ज्यादा हो, introversion है आपके अंदर. Yeah, you're in the middle, like Miss Kashyap said, she's an ambivert. So, Miss Kashyap, could you describe your characteristics?
Yeah, so for me, I am primarily an extrovert. I'm very outgoing. I make friends very easily, but I also really like my own time and my own space. So my social battery dies very, very easily, like if you put me in a crowd of people. So I am very, very in the middle. Like I'm an extrovert, but then I'm an introvert. It's weird, you know, like my interests are those of like introverts, but my personality is extroverted. So it's, you know, like that.
Okay, so I described what and being an extrovert is. So now what is being an introvert or having low extroversion? It means that you enjoy your own company over the other people's company. You're more reserved. You like meeting people. It's not like you hate meeting people, but you prefer your own company, your own solitude, and activities that are solitary. And you might enjoy social situations, but you also need your own personal space after that to recover and have time to yourself to reflect. I myself am an ambivert, and for me, it differs. For some people, I reflect off their energy. If they're an extrovert, then I will act extroverted as well. And I assimilate into introverts as well. Okay, so the other trait that we have is openness. And openness is basically how willing you are to accept new information, how creative you are, how do you react to innovative ideas or to new things. It can be spontaneity, it can be being creative. For example, we always have that one friend who is not really that organized, and बस उसको कभी भी कहें चलें इधर चलें, they're like ये कर लेते हैं, ये कर लेते हैं, very spontaneous plans, maybe even chaotic, you could say. And on the other hand, if we say someone has low openness, someone would be very much into routines, very rigid behavior. They would like repeating the same thing again and again. And if you talk about a new idea to them, they would take a lot of time to open up. They would be like, Acha, no, I am very much happy with what I am comfortable in, and these are my routines. They might be, you could say they could be close-minded. Can anyone give me an example? I think Hawaii Pakistani society में everyone, the majority of people are very, they would lie pretty low on the openness scale.
And I think the older you get, the more rigid you become to new
Exactly.
experiences and accepting change. Because आप देखते हो, even older people, uh, from our parents' generation probably, they don't accept new ideas or new experiences. You know, they're very much stuck in their old ways and patterns.
Exactly. I think हमारी society इस चीज को encourage भी करती है और award भी करती है ना, because immediately when we can label the other person chaotic, कि ये तो unpredictable है, they'll do whatever, इनका तो कोई सलीका ही नहीं है. So I think with age they expect कि ये immature, it's labeled as immaturity, कि आप में ठहराव or you become more predictable, you fit into a certain box. So for us, it's painted in a negative light, but there's no like right and wrong about this. आप spectrum में कहीं पे भी fall करते हो, you can't really label it as right or wrong. But unfortunately, our society does so.
कि हमारे कल्चर के एज यू सेड कि बहुत ज्यादा इम्पैक्ट है. What I've observed so far कि आज की जो जनरेशन है ड्यूरिंग अस, अगर वो कोई नया स्टेप लेने भी वाली होती है, बिकॉज कहीं वो एक्सपोजर हमारे बैकग्राउंड में हमारे पेरेंट्स को या हमारे जो एल्डर्स हैं उनको नहीं मिला, तो वो जो कहीं उनकी जो फियर्स होते हैं वो हमारे तक पहुंच रहे होते हैं कि आपने सोचना है, आप जो है सोचें ऐसा, जो है वो लोग आपको जज भी करेंगे, ठीक है, कौन कौन कैसा आपको परसीव करेगा, कहीं आगे जाके आपको उसके कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस फेस ना करने पड़े। तो उससे होता ये कि कहीं ना कहीं वो डर हमारे अंदर भी आ जाता है, इम्बाइब आ जाता है कि हम ठीक कर रहे हैं नहीं कर रहे हैं, सेल्फ डाउट वाली चीज आ जाती है। तो वो एक जो चल रहा है स्पेशली हमारे कल्चर में, वो बहुत कॉमन है। और अगर कोई ऐसे बिहेवियर शो करता है लाइक दे आर ओपन, दे वांट टू टेक रिस्क इन देयर लाइफ, तो उसको नेगेटिव कॉनिटेशन में ही देखा जाता है कि दे आर रिबेलियस, या वो बात नहीं मानते या वो नहीं सुनते। तो एक ये वाली चीज भी हमारे यहाँ बहुत ऑब्जर्व की जाती है, इसीलिए शायद हमारे यहाँ ये वाला स्केल पे जो है वो लोगों का स्कोर काफी नीचे आ रहा होता है।
Exactly, exactly. Thank you for sharing that insight. The third trait that I was coming to was agreeableness. और हमारे यहाँ पे इसको बहुत ज़्यादा रिवॉर्ड किया जाता है कि the more you fit into the box, the more you assimilate yourself बाकी लोगों की तरह, तो आप ही अच्छे हो. And like you said, the second you show any sort of your own sense of identity, आप अपनी personality show करना चाह रहे होते, which might be a bit different from what other people are used to, तो उस चीज़ को villainize कर दिया जाता है फौरन.
Exactly. And यहाँ पे I would also mention the good girl syndrome, जिसमें especially girls in our society, they're like, अच्छा, just keep saying yes, and act a certain way, be agreeable, and don't give your own opinion or your thoughts. Or जैसे ही if a girl opens up or shares her own experiences, she's labeled as bad, you know. And like you said, our society awards agreeableness, कि जितना वो हाँ कहेगी या जितना वो agree करेगी और जितना वो norms के साथ रहेगी, she will be considered a good girl.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so moving on to agreeableness, जिस पे हम वही बात कर रहे थे, which is very relatable. So agreeableness is how
ये पहला सवाल तो ये था कि पीपल कैन यानी कि वो एक्सट्रोवर्ट से इंट्रोवर्ट बन सकते हैं ड्यू टू सम सिचुएशन इन लाइफ। दूसरा सवाल ये था कि अगर आपके अंदर एग्रीबलनेस बहुत ही कम हो या आप बहुत ज्यादा ओपन हो, तो वो फिर आप नार्सिसिस्ट लेवल हो जाते हैं, क्योंकि आप सोसाइटी में फिट इन नहीं होते और सोसाइटी के साथ चलना भी तो फोर्स जरूरी है।
Yes, Ms. Shaheen, we will be taking questions at the end of the session, towards the end of the session. So kindly leave all your questions in the chat box, and we will address them towards the end of the session.
Like Ms. Manur said, Shaheen, मैं आपके questions at the end, I will answer them. For now, we were discussing agreeableness. Agreeableness is how open you are, how gullible you are, basically, कि आप दूसरों की बात कितनी आसानी से मान जाते हो, or how much you stand your ground on the contrary. कितना ज़्यादा आप yes कर देते हो, कितना ज़्यादा you अपनी बात आप रद्द करके you listen to the other person. And a high agreeability person would be someone who is always prioritizing other people's happiness and always trying to validate what they are saying and trying to agree to it, being overly cooperative, कि वो नाराज ना हो जाएं. But that's just one side of it. Agreeableness can also mean that you're just a very friendly person. You care about other people's opinions and their perspectives as well. तो आप उन चीजों को साथ साथ भी लेके चल सकते हो. It can be a balanced approach as well. Now, low agreeableness would mean that you are very dogmatic. आपको जो अपना point है, you always want that to be raised first. And you don't really have much regard for what other people's perspective is and what they're trying to say. You become too competitive. And usually we see this in the workplace a lot and people with authority. They think that just because they are at this certain position, so जो कुछ भी वो कहेंगे वो सही है, and then all the lower staff has to become agreeable, show agreeableness to them, because at the end of the day, it's their jobs at stake, and they have to show it. Trait we have is conscientiousness. Conscientiousness is basically the amount of control you have over yourself, the awareness you have of how you function as a person. And it's a high score would mean that how efficiently you work, how much you are aware of your आपकी जितनी भी discipline है, आपकी strengths and weaknesses. And a low score would mean you're a bit disorganized. Maybe आप चीजें कुछ. I think I had a problem with my internet. So I was describing conscientiousness. So if you fall low on that scale, it might mean that you procrastinate a lot. You do your any work that you have very last minute. It can be not very organized. आपका self control इतना नहीं है कि you force yourself to sit down and get this work done. आप उसको delay करते जा रहे हो and you're doing it very last minute. Final trait that we have is neuroticism. And neuroticism deals with your emotions, especially your negative emotions. कि आप कितनी negativity as a person you feel. It could be your anger kind of emotion, it could be sadness, it could be nervousness, it could be anxiety. It basically is your emotional regulation overall as a person. Anger is a very natural emotion. You can feel it in a lot of situations, but how you respond to that defines कि आपकी emotional stability कैसी है. Now, some people are very calm natured. They react to stress इतना ज़्यादा chaotically नहीं. They're not foreign aggressive. So they would rate less on neuroticism. Neuroticism का उल्टा है. If you rate high on neuroticism, that means you're more sensitive. आपकी emotional stability is not that great. You might have a lot of mood swings. You might feel a lot of nervousness, a lot of anger. Okay, so those were the 5 traits. Now let's talk a bit about limitations. We know that personality is very complex and it can't be categorized into just 5 main things. Yes, these are most seen predominantly, काफी common है, लेकिन these सिर्फ ये 5 can't be used alone to describe a person's entire personality. So the first limitation and the criticism that it gets is that it is too general, that there's more to personality than just these big 5 traits. And the other limitations are it can be too complex to understand for other people. Again, it's kind of the same limitation because we know personality also exists on a spectrum. Personality unique होती है, हर किसी की personality is very different. तो उसको एक तरह से you can't really standardize it that much कि इनको सिर्फ limit कर दिया जाए in 5 big traits. And the third thing is personality is relatively stable, but it can still go through a lot of changes through one's lifespan. Okay, the next thing we're going to discuss is the application of Big 5 personality. Usually it's used by psychologists in clinical settings through proper testing, and tests that are used to measure Big 5 personality is MMBTI, MMPI, NeoPI, and these are proper clinical tests जिनको standardized तरीके से आप use करते हो and then you analyze the results. These are also used in some industries by organizational psychologists to ensure peak productivity. And in industries, भी they hire organization psychologists. उनका क्या job होती है is to see के सारे employees की जो individual strengths and weaknesses हैं उनको आप कैसे accumulate करके you can make it work for the betterment of the entire organization. And then the third application is for career counseling and vocational guidance. A lot of career counselors use this test to help people find what career their personality is most suited for. जो आपकी natural tendencies हैं वो किस तरफ हैं. Okay, so the content of this was very brief, but the idea was to prompt a discussion of what you guys think your personality is, or aap mein kaun si traits you see that are dominant. So can anyone just give me an example of what they have seen or what others have told them कि आप में ये चीज बहुत dominant है?
I'm like ambiverted, and I'm very, very agreeable, like to the point where I shouldn't be. And I'm high on contentiousness, pretty high there. As for neuroticism, I feel like I would score something on that as well, but I'm not sure.
Thank you for sharing that. Is someone else trying to talk as well?
I have a question here. If we
Sure.
see the big five personalities, when we see a person who spent their life in a rude behavior or stressful behavior, then when or she turned their life in just like more years, फिर उनके बच्चों में भी वही traits आती हैं. But they are just I want to ask that how people can change their behavior, how people can change their personality. You say that people change their behaviors and their personality change by the time when they observe other people's behavior and they learned and then they entirely change their life. So when people have a neurotic personality, so how he or she can change? What will be the first step to make his life change?
The first step towards anything is awareness and recognizing your weak points. That is the biggest step you can take for yourself initially. If you recognize that, oh, I score high on neuroticism and maybe my reaction is a bit too much or I get too sensitive, the first thing is having insight. So after insight, you have a lot of different options. You can talk about it with your friends. Oh, okay, what have you observed about me? You can take their insight as well. And then you can try working on it either yourself or you can seek professional help and work on it long-term in therapy.
But Ms. Mishran, in Pakistan, people have a status. People feel and people think that we are a commander of our home or we are a bread maker of our home. So how we can change? How we can change our every rule? So I think it is so difficult to change a people that he just seeing all his society, he just seeing all the society thoughts कि लोग मेरे बारे में क्या कहेंगे. अगर मैंने अपनी जो राय है वो तब्दील कर दी, अगर मैंने अपने उसूलों को तोड़ दिया, तो आप क्या समझती हैं कि ऐसे लोगों के लिए क्या करना चाहिए? ऐसे लोगों को कैसे एक्नॉलेजमेंट देनी चाहिए कि वो अपनी जात के लिए क्या करें? Obviously, if they are neurotic, they also get in stress. They also spending their life in stressful situation. They are not getting relief at all, and they are just spreading their stress in all their family members, their society also. But they are not aware how to fix this, how to make it easy for all and for their own self.
देखिए, unfortunately, there is no quick fix. हम mental health की भी जब बात करते हैं, there's nothing that can change you overnight. It's a long process and it comes with the help of आपकी अपनी insight, having a good support system, and then seeking external help as well.
Yeah, you're saying right. That's great.
Is high agreeableness a good personality trait? अच्छा, like I said before, personality को आप you can't measure it by कि ये एक अच्छी चीज़ है, ये एक बुरी चीज़ है. जैसे दुनिया में बहुत सारे cultures exist करते हैं. There's a lot of different variety, diversity है. आप किसी opinion को भी आप ये नहीं कह सकते कि उसका सही है, मेरा गलत है. These things just exist on a spectrum. So I don't think you can say that it's a good trait or a bad trait. All traits exist naturally. It becomes a problem जब वो आपकी life में dysfunction cause कर रही है for yourself. It's creating issues for the people surrounding you as well. Then it can be a bad thing. But otherwise, I wouldn't label it like that. Nobody can be changed if they don't want to change or a situation made them. Exactly. तभी मैंने ये बात कही थी कि the first step towards any sort of change is आपकी अपनी insight, अपनी acknowledgement कि okay, I have something that I need to change and I recognize that this cannot go on any longer. Even in therapy, the very first step is कि आप खुद willing हो कि you agree that I have these issues or I need to work on these things. It's a two-way approach. बस आपने cooperate करना होता है therapist के साथ, तभी you will see change in your life. Can you, okay, I remember one question was, can we go over neuroticism again? So sure. I think I'll just explain without the slides. So neuroticism is when your emotional regulation, high neuroticism is when your emotional regulation is a bit unstable. You might feel certain emotions higher than other people. You might feel more anxious, more nervous, more sad than people around you. छोटी छोटी चीजों पे आपको stress हो जाता होगा, and failure से you're really put off by it. And आपको बेसुकूनी बेचैनी बहुत ज्यादा महसूस हो रही है and you're constantly imagining जो सबसे बुरी चीज हो सकती है उस चीज को and you find it hard to relax. That is high neuroticism. So what is low neuroticism? That is when you are more emotionally stable. आपको stress होता है लेकिन you can also de-stress afterwards. आप relax कर सकते हैं उसके बाद and आपको हर छोटी छोटी बात पे गुस्सा नहीं आ रहा होता है. हर छोटी बात पे doesn't make you nervous. It does make you nervous, but it's all about balance. It's no one's perfect. कोई भी ऐसा इंसान नहीं जिसको किसी चीज पे stress नहीं होता. Everyone has really fast-paced, stressful lives. लेकिन it depends on your management कि आप वो stress लेके आप react कैसे करते हो उस चीज को. Do you let it derail your whole day? कि आप हर वक्त उसके बारे में ही सोचते रहते हो? या are you able to think about it and still be relaxed? You're able to keep a level head जिसे कहते हैं ना, and not dwell too much on the negatives. So I hope that explains neuroticism. और बाकी जो questions हैं, please ask away.
Okay, there's one question from Ms. Shaheen, and she's asking, can people change themselves without external help?
आप वैसे भी अपना लाइफ स्पैन में देखें जो आप बच्चे होते हैं, then you become a teenager, then you become a young adult. So you are going through the process of change inevitably. आप हर stage of life में you are changing in more than one way. Not just physically and emotionally भी नहीं, और भी बहुत सारी चीजों में you are constantly changing. So definitely you can change without external help. आपका कोई क्वेश्चन किसी स्पेसिफिक चेंज के बारे में है?
Okay, there's another question that Ms. Samia just asked. How can we minimize the high level of agreeableness?
I think agreeableness comes from a place of थोड़ा सा of insecurity. जब आपकी अपनी sense of self-worth is not that strong, you are more prone to agreeableness. जब आप में खुद में थोड़ा बहुत confidence create होना शुरू हो जाता है and you realize कि जो आप कह रहे हो वो भी सही हो सकता है, I'm not wrong, तो you start standing up for yourself and अपनी बात आपको मनवानी आना शुरू हो जाती है. So you can start by आहिस्ता आहिस्ता, and like I said, कोई भी चीज जब आप कोशिश करते हो वो immediately नहीं होगी. It's not a one night process कि मैं सुबह उठूंगी and I'll be perfect. That doesn't happen. It's just not possible. हर चीज में टाइम लगता है, पेशेंस लगती है एंड कंसिस्टेंसी लगती है. आपने छोटे छोटे मौकों पे अपने आप को बिल्डअप करना है. You have to remind yourself of your strengths rather than focusing on your weaknesses all the time. इस तरह आपका अपने ऊपर कॉन्फिडेंस बिल्ड होता है.
Also, can I add something to this?
Yeah, sure.
So high agreeableness can also be managed. Like a lot of agreeable people, they don't know how to set boundaries. So I think working on setting your boundaries can help manage that as well. Some people cannot say no. Like I, for example, had this trait. I was high on agreeableness, and I could not say no for the life of me. And until I realized that, I can set boundaries within my relationships, and that improved my relationship with myself and with other people as well. So जितने भी लोग पूछ रहे हैं agreeableness का कि अगर हाई है तो मैनेज कैसे करें, learn to say no and set your boundaries within different dynamics. That does help.
Exactly. Boundaries create करना is very healthy for yourself and for the people you are living with as well.
Okay, so there's another question by Miss Uraza, and she's asking, is personality nature versus nurture debate?
It is called a debate for a reason because different people have different opinions on this. Again, I would say because every one of us has a unique personality, so definitely nature bhi nahi hai, it's not nurture, maybe somewhere in between.
Right. Ms. Shaheen is asking how to deal with narcissistic personality people when you have to live with them.
The first thing you can do is create boundaries, like Ms. Manur said. आपने उनको, you have to let them know कि ये जो आपकी certain behavior है, this is hurting me. You have to make that clear कि ये जो आप कर रहे हो, this is hurting me, and I would appreciate it if you don't do this. But I know लोगों को एक तो पहली बात से realize नहीं होता. So when you make them aware of that, they might change, they might not change. उसके बाद आपने खुद उनकी रिएक्शन के अकॉर्डिंग अपने आप को डिस्टेंस करना है. अगर तो वो कहते हैं कि ओके आई रियलाइज दैट, आई अपोलोजाइज एंड आई विल ट्राई टू मेक एन एफर्ट, तो फिर यू वर्क विद देम, यू कीप लेटिंग देम नो व्हेन दे मेक मिस्टेक्स, एंड अगर आपको इंप्रूवमेंट नजर आ रही है तो देन दैट्स ग्रेट, दैट्स अ गुड थिंग. बट फॉर एग्जांपल you've tried to create boundaries, you've tried letting them know कि उनका behavior is constantly hurting you, but फिर भी वो बाज नहीं आ रहे, they're showing the same behavior that is hurtful to you, so the best thing you can do is distance yourself from that person.
Okay. Ms.
Can I add
Bishop?
something? Yeah, I would just like to add something. So narcissistic personality, there's a difference between what we call narcissistic people and narcissistic personality disorder. Narcissistic personality disorder is an actual clinical disorder, and it is very, very misunderstood, right? Uska pura diagnostic criteria. I just want to add that comment here and back up Ms. Mishkan. So when you have a narcissistic person, that's not necessarily part of the big five. So you first have to see कि उनको narcissistic personality disorder है या are they narcissistic because of entitlement that they have. So वो distinction पहले करना जरूरी है कि वो personality disorder है या फिर they're just entitled. Does that make sense? I just want to make this distinction because NPD is so misunderstood. So I just wanted to add that. I love correcting that little myth wherever I am. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Hey, thank you for that. जैसे हमने पहले someone mentioned कि especially in Pakistani society, our elders are very authoritative. वो कहते हैं जैसा हमने कहा है, जैसा हम कह रहे हैं, ऐसा ही चलेगा, and we mistake that very often for narcissism. But हर चीज को to be labeled a disorder, there are certain criteria that needs to be met. हम जैसे depression भी है, we use that word very, very casually. We use anxiety very casually. There's a big difference between sadness you feel and clinical depression.
Right. And we'll also
sorry, go on.
and we'll also be conducting more webinars on narcissistic disorder and narcissistic personality. A detailed one. So, Ms. Kashyap, do you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to add to that, like just what we were talking about, जो है ना narcissism और वो सारा, because आजकल, like Ms. Mishkan said, things like जो एक actual disorders होते हैं, they have been watered down a lot, right? आजकल anybody who's abusive is narcissistic, right? Any parent who's entitled, any parent who's strict is narcissistic. Or Reddit and TikTok have ruined everybody's perception of those things, right? Because that's very common there. But NPD is a personality disorder, and that's very, very different. So, basically, narcissism, in my opinion, is not a word that needs to be thrown around so casually, and which is why we really want to do a webinar on that. Please join that, anybody who's interested, because I would really like to talk about that at like length.
Okay. So, thank you, Ms. Kashyap. So there's another question by Miss Ewage. She's asking, my question, is this possible that if I'm an introvert in adulthood, but in later stage of life, after like 10 years ago, I become extroverted? The traits can the traits change and personality type जो है वो change हो सकती है?
मैंने पहले भी मेंशन किया होगा कि पर्सनालिटी relatively stable होती है, but that doesn't mean कि आप minor changes उसमें नहीं ला सकते. I won't say कि 180 degrees personality change करना is impossible. It is possible, but it's just not that commonly seen. But definitely आप minor changes जरूर ला सकते हो in your personality.
Right. And then there's another question which says, I used to be highly neurotic, but from past 1 year, I'm not. Like, simply, I don't care. And the concern is I did not do it willingly, just changed over time. Is it normal?
Miss Avia, this needs to be looked into with detail. आपकी अपनी history के हिसाब से what was going on in your life. And I don't think it would be suitable to discuss this in front of everyone. So you can approach any of us individually and we can look into this matter further.
Okay, then there's a lot of questions on personality disorder and borderline personality and narcissism. So a lot of people are interested in that. That's good to know.
Yeah, I'm also seeing one on antisocial personality.
Yeah, so a lot of personality disorders.
Yeah, so those aren't part of the big five, which is what this talk is about. So if you are interested in personality disorders, we will do webinars on that specifically. And yeah, thank you for the tip.
Okay, so there's one question that is relevant to the webinar that we're hosting today. So is the development of big five personality traits more influenced by genetic predisposition or environmental factors? And how do these influences interact over the course of a person's life?
Okay, so there was a similar question, nature और nurture के बारे में कि is big five personality nature और nurture की debate में किधर fall करती है? So this is the same thing basically. आपकी and वो सभी मैंने ही कहा था कि it's a mixture of both your genetic factors and your environmental factors. आपको कहते होंगे ना कि ये तो बिल्कुल अपने माँ बाप पे गया है, वो भी ये करते थे, तुम भी ये करती हो. So there are some traits that genetically transfer into you, and then there are a lot of things that you learn from your own human experience. So it's always a mixture of both of them.
Can I ask a question on someone's behalf? She's not able to join the second half, but she texted me her questions. Is that okay? It's from Miss Aisha
Yeah,
Nuri.
sure.
Okay. You said that low conscientiousness means procrastination, low self-control, right? Due to that, we
Mhm.
delay our works or tasks. How can we overcome or decrease it?
Procrastination is a symptom. आपने पीछे से देखना है कि वो cause क्यों हो रही है. Is it your personality trait, or is it because you have a fear of failure? Is it because आप overwhelmed हो रहे हो? उसके हिसाब से the solution differs as well. If it's because constant fear of failure, then you need to come to terms with failure. Failure is a part of life. And you need to change your mindset about it as well. कि अगर failure हो भी गया, okay, what if? हो जाए. It's a learning curve. I can learn from it and I can come back and be better. If it's because you are feeling overwhelmed, then you इसको एक technique होती है. It's basically where you break everything that you have to do down into very, very small, digestible steps. Like अगर आपने, for example, you have this really big assignment due, which is 20 pages long. You're going to start by first writing 2 lines. That's very easy, right? Or that doesn't sound overwhelming. So that's how you start it. Then you're like, okay, एक paragraph लिख लिया, then I'm going to write a second paragraph tomorrow. That's how you get yourself started, and that's how you get yourself in the flow. हर चीज का जो हमें मैनिफेस्ट करके जो चीज नजर आ रही होती है ना, that's just a symptom. आपको कॉज देखना पड़ता है, और कॉज देखते हैं उसका सोल्यूशन भी डिफरेंट होता है for every cause.
Right. So there's another question from Mr. Abdullah, and he's asking, what are the effects of introversion and extroversion on behavior?
You're meaning to ask कि इसकी characteristics क्या होते हैं?
He's
So
saying,
extroversion, yeah, okay. So extroversion is where being with other people, where you prefer interacting with other people rather than solitude. जब आपको लोगों में उठना बैठना, उनके साथ कन्वर्स करना, उनके साथ इंटरेक्ट करना ज्यादा अच्छा लगता है than being alone. And उसके opposite introversion is जब आपको लोगों की कंपनी बुरी भी नहीं लगती, लेकिन इतनी अच्छी भी नहीं लगती जितनी आपको अपनी कंपनी अच्छी लगती है. आप प्रेफर करते हो कि मैं काम जो है अकेले करूं, मैं थोड़ा सा लेड बैक रिलैक्स एनवायरनमेंट में हूं. Okay, Shaheen is asking a question: how to find cause of the symptoms without external help. This would require you to be very introspective अपनी जिंदगी में, कि just observe कि क्या चीजें मुझे ट्रिगर करती हैं, कौन सी चीज़ों पे मैं बिल्कुल नम हो जाती हूँ, कौन सी चीज़ों पे मैं सेंसिटिवली रिएक्ट करती हूँ. और it's it's basically a lot of time that you spend alone with yourself, and a lot of वही introspection. You ask yourself a lot of questions about, अच्छा ऐसे मैंने रिएक्ट किया तो ऐसा मैंने क्या किया, what was I feeling at that time, what emotion was going through my head. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर आपको किसी से आपकी लड़ाई हुई है, तो आप उसके बारे में बाद में सोचें कि अच्छा मुझे उस वक्त गुस्सा आ रहा था शायद, तो मुझे गुस्सा क्यों आ रहा था, क्या मैं किसी बात पे परेशान थी जो मुझे गुस्सा आ रहा था, what was going through my head at that time. अच्छा, Tayyiba asked, but which influences more, nature or nurture? Different people, different scientists have different opinions on this. कुछ आपको नेचर की डिबेट की तरफ ज़्यादा मिलेंगे, कुछ नर्चर की ज़्यादा मिलेंगे, बट मेरी जो ओपिनियन है वो यही है कि इट्स अ मिक्सचर, बैलेंस्ड होता है. क्योंकि दोनों तरफ से आप इम्पैक्ट हो रहे हो. ऐसा नहीं है कि जो आपको जेनेटिकली मिला है आप वही लेके चल रहे हो पूरी जिंदगी. आपके अपने भी तो एक्सपीरियंसेस हैं. यू आर लर्निंग, यू आर मेकिंग योर ओन मिस्टेक्स. आप अपनी इंटरेक्शन हो रही है, यू आर गेनिंग विजडम, तो उसमें से भी आपकी काफी लर्निंग हो रही है, एंड दैट changes you as a person as well. So I would say it's still mixed.
Okay, there's another question. How does conscientiousness impact success in both personal and professional life?
High conscientiousness or low conscientiousness?
Ms. Taiba, would you like to clarify your question, please?
I'll tell you about both. Consciousness क्या होती है? Consciousness is आपकी अपनी awareness कि क्या ये काम मैं consciously कर रहा हूँ या ये मैं unconsciously कर रहा हूँ. Like am I fully aware कि ये मैं काम कर रहा हूँ? Like, कुछ चीजें हम कहते हैं बैक ऑफ द माइंड हमारी अनकॉन्शियस में चल रही हैं, तो उन चीजों की आपको अवेयरनेस नहीं होती. सो कॉन्शियसनेस इज बेसिकली जस्ट योर अवेयरनेस अबाउट योर सेल्फ, अपने बारे में सारी मालूमात इंफॉर्मेशन कि मेरी स्ट्रेंथ्स क्या हैं, मेरी वीकनेसेस क्या हैं, मैं किन चीज़ों से ट्रिगर होती हूँ, मैं किन चीज़ों में स्लो हो जाती हूँ, किन चीज़ों पे मैं ज़्यादा काम कर सकती हूँ. इट्स बेसिकली आपका अपना अवेयरनेस प्लस योर इम्पल्स कंट्रोल. सो इफ यू आर हाई कॉन्शियसनेस के स्केल पे, तो यू कैन फोर्स योरसेल्फ टू वर्क हार्डर. आपके पास अपना इतना कंट्रोल है, इतनी विल पावर है आपकी कि यू कैन वर्क विद एफिशिएंसी. आप डिटेल से चीज़ें ऑर्गेनाइज कर सकते हो, अच्छी तरह से उनको लेके चल सकते हो. एंड नाउ लो कॉन्शियसनेस इज कि मे बी यू डोंट हैव दैट मच सेल्फ कंट्रोल, कि आपको पता है कि मैंने काम करना है और आपसे नहीं हो रहा. you're not able to make yourself that focused. आप इतना अपने आप को ऑर्गेनाइज नहीं कर पा रहे. you're careless, थोड़े से impulsive हैं आप, laid back हैं, very easy going.
Okay, Ms. Taiba is further saying, isn't there a difference between consciousness and consciousness?
Yes, conscientiousness जो है और consciousness में difference है, बिल्कुल है. Consciousness is your awareness and conscience होता है आपका अपना your morals. That's why I'm saying consciousness is your awareness plus your impulse. आपका अपना control क्या है. Conscious होता है basically like your morals, आपकी values क्या हैं. You know कि ये मैं कर सकता हूँ, ये मैं नहीं कर सकता. This I will allow myself to do, this I won't allow myself to do. So consciousness, like I said, is just your awareness, but conscientiousness is your awareness plus आपका your self-control and your impulses. The next question is how to cope with a person who gets angry over small things. There's not much you can do for this person, except maybe try to use softer language. जो चीजें आपको पता है कि इनको ट्रिगर करेंगी, maybe try to tiptoe around it. बहुत ज्यादा उसको आप aggravate ना करें. But this depends on the person. जिसको गुस्सा आना है उसको आएगा. They have to work on their anger management themselves. Yes, Taiba, a big file में conscientiousness included है.
Because we are already over time. Is there anything else you would like to say, Ms. Mishkan, before we wrap up for today?
I'm just going over the questions to see if we missed any. Miss Uraza asked a lot of questions about narcissism, psychopathy, sociopathy, antisocial personality. I said these things इनके ऊपर, like we said, we are going to do workshops on these, so be on the lookout for that. बाकी अगर आपको थोड़ा सा brief चाहिए तो narcissism, no, actually I think it's better if I leave it on a proper workshop जो सारी चीजें इसको address करे.
Yes, we have one coming up on narcissism. Not sure when, but there will be one in the future because we are planning that. And yeah, you can join that one. Because we have one on, I think, narcissism and differences between narcissism and abusive behavior and stuff. So you can be on the lookout for that.
Right. So, okay, so Miss Amen is saying, okay, yeah, so we do have a video on the YouTube channel for anger management. So whoever had that question about anger management, they can definitely see that on the YouTube channel. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Ms. Mishkan, for your detailed presentation on the Big Five personality model. And hopefully everyone had an insight into their own personality type, and hope it was helpful for everyone. Thank you for joining us.